The key announcements were, of course, as expected, no passenger fare increase. But importantly, plan expenses are going to increase by 52% to 1.11 lakh crore. Okay, 1.1 lakh crore from about 65,000 crore, 64,400 crore last year. So that is the big announcement, if you please, in terms of increase in plan outlays. They are to be got by a mix of budgetary support, which will be 41%, and another 17% coming from internal generation, and the rest they are hoping to get, of course, from perhaps an infra fund, which will be seeded and then contributed to by financial institutions and multilateral agencies. That is the thrust in terms of numbers. We also know that the operating ratio has improved to 91.8 against 92.3 that was expected, and I think 93.5 that was the FY14 number. So from FY14, 93.5, the operating ratios have improved to 91.8 and further expected to improve to, I think, 88.5% in the current year. So there is a commitment to improve, and to be fair to the minister, FY15 has also kind of bettered the target that was set by the previous rail budget. That's what I can remember by way of numbers. Anything more you can add?
Well, and the operating ratio at 88.5% is the best that we've seen in the last 9 years. Apart from that, they've also given a few numbers about spending. They anticipate a requirement of 8.5 lakh crore by way of investments into railways, at least for the next 5 years. They've spoken about spending close to about 92,500 crore for capacity expansion in FY16, and they've given some numbers for on the dedicated freight corridor, where 750 kilometers of civil contracts and 1,300 kilometers of system contracts will be given out in FY16. But overall, Lata, it seems more like a vision document. The things that they've spoken, it's a very systematic approach. Everything is in pointers, 4 goalposts, 11 thrust areas, and they've spoken about customer experience. So they want eventually to make Indian Railways a world-class mode of transport. Okay. But that 8.5 lakh crore of spending, how will it come? No word was spoken on FDI. There was, at least I didn't hear anything on FDI.
No, it was multilateral agencies, government to government
and development bodies and JVs and PPP. But again, we've had this, there's no specific on how it will come through.
Yeah, maybe we want to just look at the rail stocks. The rail stocks, if anything, have taken a beating ever since the speech began. So there is not much of much that the market expects has gone in favor of any of the rail stocks. There you have Texrail, Texmaco, all of them, Kalindee Rail over there, all of them showing a fall. And on the contrary, all the solar companies, the few that we have, Indo Solar, Sumit Industries, Moser Bayer, those are the companies which lately have been up and about because of expectations of a thrust for renewable energy and solar energy. Those are the only ones that I can see as having...
ATZ is reacting because of, the focus on cleanliness as well as maintenance. Apart from that, Zycom is also reacting positively because of, the railway budget's focus on security.
We can get to our guests quickly. Okay, Mr. Sachin Bhanushali of Gateway Rail Freight is with us. Sachin, first thoughts?
I think all the important issues have been addressed, though I got a bit of lost in the details which were being given out. And as you rightly said, as far as the granularity of the budget proposals are concerned, was not evident because all the details, I think, are in the Annexure 2, which all of us are eager to look at. Specifically, I think he has addressed capacity by saying that doubling, tripling and quadrupling of the existing railway lines will have to be done. Apart from that, 9 corridors have been identified for increasing capacity as well as speed. I think that's the right approach. That's where the focus needs to be kept in terms of development of network capacity. From resource mobilization point of view, the target of 8.5 lakh crores of rupees over a period of 5 years, as well as getting adequate money into the kitty for addressing the plan outlay of 110,000 crores during the current year. is, I think, one that would attract most attention, because that is where a lot of energy is going to be devoted in terms of mopping up of resources. In terms of execution, I think there was a very sketchy picture which was painted by saying that it will be effective execution with transparency, whatever that means. One was expecting some kind of restructuring of the railway board, or at least the administration would take place, but that doesn't seem to be on the anvil. One good thing which I have seen is that there is a 5-year perspective which has been laid out right in the beginning itself. Yeah. That means the next 4 budgets are going to be in tandem with the line of thought as far as the current budget is concerned. The credibility issue also to some extent seems to be addressed, wherein the private freight terminal, SFTO, wagon leasing scheme, liberalized wagon investment scheme, etc. are addressed, but unfortunately container train operators, which is also one of the areas where there has been a lot of concern voiced by operators like us, doesn't seem to have found any favors as far as mentioned in the budget speech is concerned. The 6,600 kilometers of railway electrification also is an area, I think, which is a step in the right direction. It will reduce our dependence on imported fossil fuel. Those are my initial takeaways from the budget.
Okay. Mr. Bhanushali, would you say this budget is better than what we've seen, at least in the last 3 to 4 years?
Yes, definitely. I think there is a very clear underlying thought as far as the entire budget is concerned. The populism, which is normally seen as the theme of the budget, doesn't seem to be the major area covered by the budget. I think the focus is very clearly on clean, efficient, economic as well as effective rail system for India as such. I think it is definitely a positive step as far as the overall approach is concerned. But I think the devil is in the details. One needs to look at how the money is going to be generated, how the resources are going to be generated, how the restructured administrative efficiency is to be brought in, etc.
Yeah, actually, a little bit of those devilish details are coming to us. The gross budgetary support is 40,000 crores compared to 30,000, I think 500 crore odd that was at least in the budgeted estimates of last year, and proposes market borrowing of 17,600 crores. I don't have the comparable figure.
That compares with 11,800 crore in the previous, the budgeted estimate for this year.
Okay, that was 11,000 crores. Okay, that's what we have by way of details at this point in time. Sachin, we are coming to you in a minute. We're joined by Vallabh Bhanshali on the phone. Mr. Bhanshali, what are your initial comments on the rail budget?
I think it's a phenomenal budget in terms of we have got used to railway ministers more catering to populism, and here is a very, very visionary railway budget, which is probably, I hope, if the government can function in this manner, which is like consumer-focused, vision-led, systems-led. So we may not see immediate things in it, but I think this is really transformational.
Why would you really call it transformational or just incremental, sir? What was transformational about it? Passenger fares have not been raised. We know from last year that 20,000 crores is the amount of subsidy that the railways bear. You need 23 pies of subsidy for every kilometer of moving one passenger for 1 kilometer. There doesn't seem to be a game plan to reduce that just yet. Why are you calling it transformational? Maybe incremental is the word, no?
It's very interesting. I think over the years what I've seen in management is that is decision-making and accountability that really bring about the change. And forever we saw centralization of decision-making. This budget and the minister has laid out a plan that how they want to decentralize decision-making, how they want to root out corruption. I don't know, Lata, if you heard this before, but I heard this multiple times, that if you can reduce the corruption in railways, the tracks can convert from, steel to silver. And I think if you look at the whole plan, he's saying, I want innovation, I want involvement of multiple agencies, which, cuts across corruption. And therefore, he said that the railways always had inherent capacity to expand, to modernize, and to do whatever. So we're already the cheapest railway in the world, and yet he thinks that without increasing fares, a lot can be done. So you've seen operating ratio improve already. He's talking of a leap there, by another almost 5%. And given the track record of Mr. Prabhu, I like to believe that he knows what he's talking about, and therefore I call it transformational. That I think 3-4 things: the decision making, transparency, partnerships of various kinds, and he's going with PSUs. He mentioned several ministries. I think when you bring more people to the party who are constituents to the activity, things change completely. The friction that slows down things just seems to fall away.
Okay. Mr. Bhanshali, has the budget announced enough to address the funding constraints of the railways?
That's interesting, but based on whatever interaction I have had various people, and I was listening to some of the commentators on your channel from time to time, the amount of interest that the world has now in funding India and financing India is phenomenal. Railways is one of the best areas to support because it has the most visible, unhurdled revenue flows, and therefore one can do 20-30-year loan transactions in this area. And I think he mentioned IRFC as being already there, and I think this has been one of the largest money raisers for the government over the years. I think that can grow by several times.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bhanshali, thank you very much for joining us with your initial comments on the budget. Yes, transparency and a corruption-free decision-making, decisive decision-making process will help. The intent of the railway minister and his past track record leads you to believe that will be delivered. And of course, the immediate track record of the last 1 year has also been that operating ratios have improved. So perhaps just simply doing the job better is what he has promised. And of course, he has a record of delivering that.
And he showed it to some extent in the operating ratio from 93.5 to 91.8 to 88.5 is what he's projected.
Fair enough. We have got more experts joining us. Sandeep Fuller, the Managing Director of Kalindee Rail, joins in. Mr. Fuller, what's your initial comment? Was there any key takeaway that will make your participation in railways better?
Good afternoon. One of the key things with which the railway minister started was that he mentioned about the vicious cycle of underinvestment. So he has set the trend by giving a very systematic development of what are his goals, what are his way forwards, and what are his thrust areas. Amongst the thrust areas, there is a major thrust on capacity augmentation, which is welcome and which will go a long way in improving the performance of the railways. Besides this, he has also talked of increasing the total freight haulage to 1.5 billion tons, which is a big target, but it's definitely achievable with the introduction of better wagons, an improved wagon leasing scheme which he is looking at, and improved and new designs of wagons to be coming in. On the whole, he has targeted an investment of 8.5 lakh crores over the next 5 years, and that should augur well for the industry as a whole.
Okay, well, I'm still wondering where that money will come from, though. But yes, it's a vision statement, so perhaps we will have to wait for those details. We have more guests joining us.
Yes, we have Jitendra Mamtora, the chairman of Transformers and Rectifiers. He also joins in. Good afternoon, Mr. Mamtora, and thanks so much for joining in. Is there anything in the budget which can benefit the financials of your company, at least for the next 1 year?
Not really, in fact, except for the electrification. When it goes to the electrification of the non-electrified lines, that happens, then we come into the picture, because we as a manufacturer of transformer can have a big stake there.
Mamtora, actually that was a big thrust. I think it was 6,600 kilometers of rail that they want electrified. That was part of the railway minister's speech. Would that make a big difference to you?
Yeah, it will make a big difference, of course, because as I said, electrification means they will need more power, they will need more transformer, and there are, the power utilization of the utilities or the power generating companies, because of the lack of the transmission lines, they are unable to do it. So this will become a major improvement in the performance of the industry as a whole. As the electrification takes place, means they will have to give power only at one point, and then they go on supplying the power.
What was the order that you got in FY15 from the railways for electrification?
Not really. We didn't get anything, except that we received, because we are not a regular supplier to the railways, because there are a lot of hurdles in getting approval and all that. Now we have got the approval, and so it will become easier for us to get into this. Last year we hardly had. We had some few crores, 10, 12 crores of order from them. And that order is finished. Now we'll become a regular supplier, and we definitely will get more inquiries and then more orders eventually.
Okay. So, in the announcement, it was close to a little more than 6,000, kilometers of non-electrified is likely to be electrified is what we understand. You can correct us because there have been so many numbers. So, in that, what was the earlier announcement in the previous budget? Because if in the previous budget the number was lower, you only managed about, one an order for about 15 kilometers. So, what can we expect, from this chunk of, electrification which is likely to take place in this year? How much perhaps could come to your company?
I won't be able to comment on that as such, because, it will all depend on how they intend to do it, whether they are doing it with DC, with SC, and then a lot of other factors which will factor into before we really know what will be our stake for us in this budget. It will take its own time before we really come to any conclusion. But with this announcement, it will be difficult for us, or rather for me, to predict anything.